Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and as usual, I have a plugin, and this is the plugin I meant to have last week. I've been putting a bunch of work into it, and I believe I've got it fixed up, although it's still kind of a old school plugin from old Airwindows, so there are some bits that are consistent with how it used to be that may or may not be useful. Don't mind me, I have been getting a bunch of plugins and things together. I've got various bug fixes and stuff coming out, and let's just get right on towards the new plugin, or the old plugin that's new to you. And I've also got a bug fix going on where I think it's working better than it ever did before. And it is called BassAmp. So let's play a bass sound. BassAmp does this. We've got these various controls, and this is what you started with, the dry signal. So you can use mostly that and add these other ones for effect, or you can rely more heavily on these other ones. Dub is a low frequency fill that's kind of like what I've got going on in the two tape plugins, although it's a sort of custom special version. It's a little different from the usual kind, and that's what gives it its sound. But it also is what gave me the problems last week, because it's doing a complicated thing to give a certain fuzziness and roundness to the tone. If you have dub, you can also introduce sub, but you might not want to because, well, it's like a really garbagey analog stomp box octave divider. So this is kind of what it used to be. It can be an additional dirt factor. And as you can hear, occasionally it'll hit notes where something happens. But the interesting thing about this bass sound is also the high, which is, I don't want to say modeled after, but I did have some bass preamps at one stage that I used. And, well, we've got this nice sort of bright clangy quality going on. So you can get a bass tone that is quite exaggerated, really. Or indeed quite clicky. And you may say, well, what would happen if you had a dirt good bass tone? Well, you might have a sort of amp tone going on, like this is. And it's the same deal. You can use dry signal. Or you can use the dub setting to thicken and warm stuff up a little bit, although that's still a bridge pickup. That's a Rickenbacker bridge pickup. And you can have high in there. So one thing you can do is use the direct signal that I've got here for just the lows. And this is actually something that I could do the way I've got my rig set up with the different pickups going to different places, but you could do it with any bass that you set up in stereo where one pickup goes to one output and the other pickup goes to the other output. You have the neck pickup, the bass pickup, going into this dub setting. And then you have the bright sound going into the high setting, and that's going to translate the tone of the bass over in such a way where you're getting the amplifier-like tone to it, but kind of sucking out the areas where they're not helpful. And then if you do that and set it in a mix, and you could have something kind of like that compared to what I had going forwards, which is what I was doing in the analog mix. So there you have it. I've been real busy fixing that and learning how to make matrix reverbs and updating all the biquad plugins, which is going to be a complicated update because it's changing the way that it sits on the frequency control, which was never labeled anyhow. So it's like, if I replace these biquads the way I've got them set up, it'll be more flexible for operating between different sample rates, like the frequencies sit more comfortably in the middle of the control, no matter what sample rate you use, but it won't honor previous settings, so that's going to be tricky. And I've also updated clip only, which was not 64-bit clean on, and by that I mean the signal path on the 64. Here, let me shut up this bass. At some point, I'll have time to record new music, and that'll be exciting. But for the time being, yeah. It's been a busy week for all of us, I think. And I've managed to continue to do work, nevertheless. And the clip only had a bug that somebody found not by listening, because you wouldn't find this by listening, but by looking at it in a measurement program, where it was doing its clip-only thing, and if you were using the audio unit, you would never notice anything, but if you were using 64-bit VST, and then looked at it with a bit examiner tool, it wasn't keeping the lowest bits in the 64-bit floating point word, and I found why it was doing that and fixed it. So that's happening quickly. In fact, I might have it up by the time this video goes up, because why not stay up into the night updating and fixing everything? That's one where it's not going to be an issue as far as inconveniencing anybody, because nobody would ever notice that that was wrong in the first place by listening to it. But I fixed it anyway. I've also been doing a lot more music jamming, and people are interested in like weird techno or dub techno or ambient spacey music. This is where I get the inspiration for the plugins, and I've been playing a lot more often. What might interest you about that is, firstly, I'm getting better at it, but secondly, now I have a microphone that can go into that situation. So what happens is I start streaming and start slowly getting everything together rather than having to get it all perfectly and then like raising the curtain and performing. And when I'm happy with how everything is working, all the while talking to you in the chat, I'll cut the microphone, jam for like 70 minutes or so, long enough to make a CD that I can throw in the car. And once I'm done, I'll hang out for like an hour answering any sort of questions that you might have. And that's been happening on a repeated basis. So if you wanted to catch up and have more Airwindows Q&A rather than just the Monday one that I do, I generally start in the afternoons on times that I'm doing the music thing. And if you see me playing and hang in there, I'll finish that up at some point and grab the mic, and then I'll be able to answer other questions you might have. So there's that. That's me being a little bit more accessible than I used to be. And all of this is, of course, paid for by Patreon. Patreon is getting by reasonably well. Honestly, I cannot complain about that because, like, I do a line of work where I don't have to get into terrible trouble. And if anybody out there is having trouble making rent or paying for food or anything like that, you need to cut me loose and take care of yourself. I promise I'll be okay. Be that as it may, Patreon is still hanging in there. The only real changes I have to my plans are I had a plan of reaching a particular goal of Patreon income, at which point I would start doing a hardware synthesizer project that some people are familiar with me doing this, where I would get electronic tools into the hands, well, not tools, parts into the hands of people and start doing streams where I'm soldering together synthesizers and things, which is what I did to start out and still interests me. I mean, even just this last week, I've got some more of those CMOS logic chips and things. I've got a phase-locked loop and some various switches and things, and I have big ideas for what I can do to make some cool synthesizer type effects that you could wire together out of chips that cost you about $0.25. Technically more like 39 cents, but seeing as stuff is tough for people at the moment, I'm seriously thinking about just starting to give this stuff away as I get it in quantities that are large enough that I can dispose of it. So we'll be talking about that. I would say don't promote that. If you're paying attention to this, then you can be one of the people that I'll just send a care package to, and then we can do like synthesizer building live streams, and then you can follow along at home. I will be the Bob Ross of wiring up stuff with a soldering iron, except for that I'll send you the stuff to wire up. But that, be that as it may, that is going to be coming later. For now, this is BassAmp from sort of a while back, but I think it will still come in handy, and it's never existed in VST, and it's been kind of a secret weapon for people for some time. And now it's working properly, and you get the nice sort of woolly, low-frequency thing that's not quite like any of my other stuff. And I'll see you folks on Monday. We'll be experimenting with other kinds of plugins and stuff, because Monday is coding plugins live on stream. And we'll see what we can get happening. On that note, I hope you like BassAmp, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.